correspondent David Willis, who is in...
Mark Lowen is in Turkey on the border.
That's BBC's Randy Josar reporting from Yaoundé.
Laura Trevelyan live.
Our correspondent in Sydney, John Donnison, joined
online, on mobile and on air. This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
Hi, I'm Julian.
And I'm Katie.
Welcome to a special edition of World I Have Your Say. How would you describe FIFA?
Corrupt.
Waste of money.
Big organization.
Corrupt.
Money.
Definitely corrupt.
Corruption. Amazing.
Corruption.
If those views from central London today are anything to go by, football's world governing body has a big credibility problem.
As they elect their new president, we're asking a group of fans from around the world to share their ideas.
4 candidates are battling it out after Sepp Blatter was forced to step down over corruption allegation, seeing him banned from football for 6 years.
But he's not alone. 30 people connected with FIFA have also been arrested. So what is the future of the game we love? And can FIFA be trusted to move the sport forward?
I'm Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. Election officials for world football's governing body FIFA are holding a second round of balloting to choose its new president. Gianni Infantino of Switzerland and Sheikh Salman of Bahrain won the most votes in the first round. Earlier, FIFA approved reforms designed to improve transparency and prevent corruption. Our correspondent K8E says delegates were today given a stark reminder that they'll struggle to move on from recent scandals.
Early on in this Congress, when it was announced that FIFA had a shortfall in their finances of $550 million, that as a result of sponsors leaving them in their droves in the wake of this corruption scandal that's engulfed the organisation. It's why that it was so important for FIFA that those reforms were passed. That's what they hope will make them a more accountable and transparent organisation.
The main opposition group in Syria has said that almost 100 rebel groups, including factions from the Free Syrian Army, have signed up to a temporary cessation of hostilities due to start at midnight local time. Sebastian Usher reports.
One of the big obstacles in achieving any breakthrough in Syria has been the sheer profusion of rebel groups and their shifting alliances. All such groups had until midday to announce whether they would be observing the pause in fighting. So it's a hopeful sign that so many are now said to have done so, but it doesn't assure even limited success for the truce. All sides have made clear they will fight if attacked. IS and the Nusra Front aren't part of the deal, and President Putin has again made clear that it's not just those two groups that Moscow will continue to bomb, but what he called other terrorist organizations.
A Palestinian journalist has ended a 94-day hunger strike in an Israeli jail. Mohammed al-Kik has been held without trial since last November. From Jerusalem, Yolande Nell.
Recent pictures of the TV reporter showed him looking thin and frail in a hospital bed. His lawyers warned he was close to death. The journalist, who works for a Saudi media outlet, has been accused by Israel of involvement in incitement and militant activities linked to the Islamist group Hamas, which he denies. He went on hunger strike to protest against the torture and ill-treatment he said he'd suffered in custody and against the controversial practice of administrative detention, which allows Israel to hold suspects without trial for periods of 6 months, renewable indefinitely.
State television in Iran says voting has been extended by 2 hours in nationwide elections because of what it describes as a rush of voters. The elections for a new parliament and an assembly of experts are the first since Tehran signed a deal with world powers over its nuclear program. The Assembly of Experts is an influential body that appoints the country's supreme leader. Both the elected bodies are currently dominated by hardliners. Reformist supporters of President Hassan Rouhani are hoping to make gains. This is the World News from the BBC. Members of a drug-dealing armed gang that exploited vulnerable girls for sex in the northern English town of Rotherham have been given long jail sentences. The ringleaders, 3 brothers of Pakistani origin, got between 35 and 19 years for offences including rape. Their uncle and 2 female accomplices were given lesser terms for forcing at least 1,400 girls into prostitution over a 16-year period up to 2013. Chinese state media says a Christian pastor has been sentenced to 14 years in prison after he was found guilty of corruption and inciting people to disturb social order. Bo Guahua gained prominence in the southeastern province of Zhejiang after resisting attempts by the authorities to remove the cross from the exterior of his church. Celia Hatton has the story.
One by one, more than 1,000 rooftop crosses have disappeared from churches in Zhejiang, removed by the authorities who argue they violate building codes. But many believe the cross removals are an attempt to limit Christianity across the province, where the religion has a strong following. Pastor Bao Guohua and his wife, Xingwen Xiang, were detained by police last August. Shortly after, Chinese prosecutors accused the couple of embezzling money from their congregation. Mr. Bao's supporters believe he was targeted by the state because he was one of the very few government-approved pastors who dared to stop the cross removal from his church.
Several Balkan countries have announced new limits on the number of migrants crossing their territory on the way to northern Europe. Slovenia says it'll allow fewer than 600 people to enter each day, and Croatia, Serbia and Macedonia say they'll do the same. As more migrants continue to arrive in Greece, the government there has told ferry companies to reduce the number travelling to the mainland. 2/3 of those arriving on Lesbos will be held there until Sunday as a temporary measure. BBC News.
Hello, welcome to this special edition of World Have Your Say. I'm Chloe Tilley, live with a group of football fans at the home of the BBC Broadcasting House in London. We're gathered in the Media Cafe, which is, 3 floors beneath our usual studio. To my right, there's a window. I can see a London bus heading off to Camden Town. We've got cabs and all sorts of things going past on our busy London streets. I am sitting here with a group of football fans surrounding me, and I've got screens here as well, including one which has a live feed from Zurich, and that is why we're here, because football's world governing body FIFA is meeting there. I can in fact see delegates voting right now for the next president of FIFA. So while they're having their conversation, we're having our own discussion about the future of football. Of course, there have been numerous corruption allegations. 30 current or former FIFA executives have been arrested so far. And of course, the 2 most powerful men in world football, Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini, have also been banned for 6 years from any footballing activity. So what next for FIFA? We're going to ask these fans whether it's the right organisation to take football forward and if they have any faith in it. I mean, does football even need FIFA? That's the discussion we're having over the next hour here on World Have Your Say. We're using the hashtag BBC FIFA Future. If you want to get in touch, I can see our Twitter feed at the moment. Lots of people getting in touch, and we've also just tweeted all of our fans, they've come in their football shirts today, which is fantastic. It's like a team photo. If you go to our Twitter feed, you will see that there. But first of all, I just want to ask you all, as you sit here, are you surprised by what has happened in the last few months at FIFA?
My name is Calvin, supersport.com. I haven't been surprised. It was long overdue. Quite a number of the sporting organizations like the IOC, IAAF, and the others, corruption was always going to happen. Where there's so much money, it's almost inevitable that something like this is going to happen. So it has not surprised me. Hopefully, these elections will give us a change most of us require and expect.
My name is Jordan, a sports writer. No, it didn't surprise me at all either. I think there's a clear image problem with FIFA. When people hear the word FIFA, they think of theft, corruption, and middle-aged men to old men in suits doing things they shouldn't be doing. That, for me, leads into the negative segue of what we're seeing today, which is mere window dressing. You don't replace a bad president with a less bad president. The candidates are all, for me, flawed quite severely. The problem isn't the president or the candidates, it's the culture of FIFA. That's what really needs changing. Otherwise, we're going to just see what's happened over the last 20, 30 years.
My name's Deborah Unger. I'm with Transparency International, and we've been working to try and get reform at FIFA for a long time now. So we're not surprised that it's come to this, because we've seen that there have been terrible problems within the organisation. I think everyone was surprised, though, when the FBI stepped in and arrested so many people last year. That we didn't think was going to happen. But I think we do need to look at what the reforms are. I agree with you that the presidential candidates at the moment leave a lot to be desired, but there might have to be a little bit of a wait-and-see period. I'm not very optimistic, though.
My name is Ennio, I'm from Italy, and I agree with you, you're true. And also, what surprised me is the fact that FIFA itself, I hope that FIFA itself realized that they have huge problems, because when the first wave of arrest came on, it was 2 days before the Congress that re-elect Blatter, and Blatter was forced later to resign, but only because he was forced. So if they realize that now they have to change for real, because to require some credit to fans, to all the people worldwide, maybe we can hope to see some good future for FIFA.
Okay, my name's Nick. I'm a West Bromwich Albion supporter here today. I think that FIFA is a totally irrelevant organisation to the vast majority of people who love and are concerned about football. In fact, I would suggest that the initials stand for fans' interests F all, really. They don't really have anything to help us with. Ticket prices need to come down. The influence of television companies on the game, where soon, games will be played in front of empty stadiums, as far as I can see. And these are the things which don't even seem to be included in the reforms today. And I agree with those of my friends here who've already said that FIFA needs to be scrapped.
I think one of the important things, this is Oliver for a Norwich fan, is that the FBI didn't just say it was a bit corrupt, they said it's a mafiosa-type organisation. And if the FBI think you're the mafia, that shows you that this is pretty corrupt right the way through how they do business. And that's one of the things that Sheikh Salman said in his speech was, we need to come out and show people that we are here for FIFA, not here for the fans, not here for football. It started with here for themselves. And I don't know whether they've really got this idea that they have to completely change. It's not just a little bit.
It's great to have Transparency International here with us in the talk. Financial transparency is key to FIFA moving forward, and it's really great news that the reform's been passed for top executives to disclose their salaries, and to give that level of transparency will help restore trust in the people leading the organisation.
Well, it's worth saying about those reforms. That reform package was passed this morning ahead of the vote for the next president. Various things approved, limited terms for the new president, just 3 terms. Sepp Blatter, of course, served 5. Disclosure of salaries, a new FIFA council, and of course something we'll get on to talking about a little bit later on, promotion of women in football, and if that will make any difference at all to the organisation.
I'm Julien from south of France, support Marseille. I think when football fans hear about FIFA, they hear a mix of politics and business, like a money-making machine, when really FIFA is about football. And I think it'd be better if most people from the football game itself would be involved.
Hi, I'm Jesus from Spain, football correspondent and Celta Vigo supporter. I agree with the topic about focusing on the real problems for the football fans mainly. You talk about the stadiums being or probably being empty. It's already happening in Spain, for example, where it looks like it's more important the football as a TV product more than going to a stadium and support your team. So I think this is already happening. And regarding the FIFA governing body, I think it's impossible to change all the people that is there. The new candidates are the same people again, people that are being in FIFA in charge for a lot of years. So you need the rules and let the time do the work.
Well, you mentioned the candidates there, and a number of you have talked about the candidates. And for people listening around the world, there were 5 candidates today. One of them dropped out, 4 remaining who are thrashing it out to become the next president. Let's get some more information on who they are.
Gianni Infantino, 45, Italian-Swiss. Currently UEFA General Secretary, joined in 2000 as a lawyer.
He wants to expand the World Cup to upwards of 40 nations and make sure FIFA serves the interests of all 209 national associations, big or small.
Fact.
Speaks fluent Italian, French, German, English and Spanish.
Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa, 50, Bahraini. Currently the Asian Football Confederation President and FIFA Vice President.
He wants to relaunch FIFA and split it into a commercial arm and a footballing operation.
Fact.
Played for the youth team of Bahrain Division 1 team Rifa Club.
Prince Ali bin Al Hussein, 40, Jordanian, the president of Jordan Football Association and founder and president of the West Asian Football Federation, former FIFA vice president.
He wants the total development of football around the world, quadrupling the amount of money member associations receive to increase sustainability.
Fact.
Holds the rank of brigadier in the Jordanian Armed Forces.
Jerome Champagne, 57, French, a former FIFA executive and advisor to Sepp Blatter, now a consultant in international football.
He wants to strengthen the role of national associations involving leagues, clubs and players in the decision-making process.
Fact.
Served as a diplomat in Oman, Havana, Paris, Los Angeles and Brasilia.
Well, those were the candidates. It's really interesting looking around this room of football fans because you were all really engaged and animated before we played that little piece, and suddenly the energy just disappeared from the room. It was just like, oh. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but I want to bring in Ben Sutherland, a friend of World Have Your Say. Of course, he is sports editor for languages here at the BBC World Service. Just explain to us, Ben, as we look at this screen behind me here in our room at the BBC Broadcasting House, the second round of voting has started for the presidential election at FIFA. Explain to us where we are with it all.
Well, it was a little bit of a surprise, actually, the first round. So all that stuff that you just learned about Jerome Champagne, you don't need to worry about that because he's not going anywhere. He only got 7 votes in the first round. He won't be getting any more than that. So what's happened, to begin with, that first round, you needed to get, the successful candidate would have needed to have got over 2/3 of the votes. That's not happened. So all 4 of them now go through and they're going to do it again. And they're going to do it this time where it's a simple 50% plus 1 majority. Now, the surprise winner of the first round was actually Infantino. We were expecting that Sheikh Salman would be the one who was slightly out in front. He was definitely the favourite. But he only
was
got
only about 3 votes, wasn't
That's right,
it?
yes, exactly. So Salman ended up with 85 votes. Infantino, though, got 88. And then Champagne, as I say, only got 7. And Prince Ali, it's where his 27 are going to go to. That's going to now be the really, really interesting and big question. Are people going to desert Prince Ali in this second round of voting? And no one's going to want to be seen to have backed the loser in this race. So where are Prince Ali's votes going to go?
I'm scared to answer this question because it's FIFA and we never know the answer. But any idea when we might know who the new president is?
Well, at the moment, it seems to be that aptly enough, each round of voting takes 90 minutes. So, and then it takes about half an hour then to count them up. So my guess is we'll know the result of the second round around about 5:30 GMT. But whether that will give us a decisive winner, that's anyone's guess.
I'm Fernando Duarte from BBC Brazil, and one thing that I noticed in this vote, apart from the fact that they seem to have a fantastic time, they're all laughing as if they're not deciding the cleaning of world football, by the way. Very sympathetic to what some of you guys are saying. FIFA has lost the plot with the public, but it is the first time since the 1974 election that we have a second round. Since the time João Avelange defeated Stanley Rose and did this upheaval thing in FIFA, that we have a second round. So this is something. This means that if they are going to be bad guys together, they are at least diverging. There is at least something. There isn't like this unit. They're not voting as a block, and that's quite important.
I think sorry, I'm Aaron. I'm from the London branch of the Northern Ireland Supporters Club. I think the difficulty with everything in this election and why people look as if they're about to cry when these names are mentioned is because no one, any football fan, the first time they hear about them is usually because one of these people's arrested. There's no transparency in terms of whether they're fit for purpose, where they've come from. Obviously, we know people like Platini who've played the game, but there are difficulties with each one of these candidates, and they're picking the best from a bad bunch. They've all got problems. In fact, Champagne, who's now been knocked out, he was actually the only one that turned up to the European Parliament to have a debate in this. None of the other candidates bothered to turn up. I mean, it's frankly outrageous, and from my own perspective and from a lot of fans I've spoken to, it's a closed shop, and I really think that the reforms are good, but I don't think they go far enough, and we probably need a new organisation, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, I'm Sherelle, and I'm from the Keep On Side show. Personally, I'm a Liverpool fan. Don't really understand. As a fan, I don't think many of us know about what FIFA is. They come along and they tell us that we've got to go to Qatar or Russia for a World Cup. And then as people have said before, the corruption, and that's the first time that we've really heard of them. So, I mean, with this election, definitely I'm glad that the reforms have come, especially the minimum of 6 women, etc. That's fantastic. Hopefully it'll make it a bit more diverse, but the whole system really is wrong.
Dean Ami here from Ami Football. Interesting listening to what's happened in the election so far. Personally, the election isn't the main thing here. Infantino's going to walk it. I don't think it's a surprise he's come out on top. He's been Platini's right-hand man for the last decade. He's been doing Champions League draws. He's at the centre of UEFA, and he's going to be at the centre of FIFA, just like Platini was going to be before he got found out. And he also says, I know, I'll make it 40 teams, so you smaller nations can vote for me and have a chance of qualifying. This is a small step of a big journey in getting rid of corruption, because it's still there, and we still need to discover the deeper root of it to stamp it out of our game.
This is Calvin, Supersport.com. I think we need to understand this corruption bit that we're talking about. FIFA, the guys in the FIFA do not solicit for money from people from Mars. It's the countries who want to host the World Cup. They decide we're probably going to gain a lot from hosting the World Cup, and they decide to offer these FIFA officials money. What I think needs to happen is everybody involved in football. See, personally, I think football across all levels in every country is corrupt. We need to understand it. Except people are determined to do things cleanly. Doesn't matter who enters FIFA. Doesn't matter who is in the FA at wherever they are in England, wherever they are in Italy, wherever they are in Nigeria. If we're not all determined to be transparent, we're not determined to be clean, we won't change it. Just changing FIFA officials won't change anything.
I'm Ennio from Italy. I would just want to say I'm not surprised, like the one said before about Infantino. Infantino has traveled in the last 2 months all over the world, and he has secured the votes for a small federation in South America, in Africa, in all around the world. And that's what paid off, for example, Blatter in order to win elections, because Blatter promised a lot of money, a lot of, spots in the tournaments. And it was what brought down
Blatter was incredibly popular in certain areas of the world. We've done programs on World Have Your Say when the first allegations against Blatter were made, and people were coming onto our program simply outraged that anything could be said against him because he'd advanced the game. He'd built pitches in countries that had no pitches, where they had to share with rugby fields, and it made a real difference to grassroots football in certain parts of the world.
Because he understands that for secure his role, and to win 5 terms as president, he had to obtain the endorsement of smaller countries, because 209 countries, each vote is the same. So if Italy votes for me, it's the same as, for example, Mozambique, just making an example. So.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm from Hackney Laces. The thing that stands out for me, both with the candidates and the reforms and all of the faff around this election, and whether it's just going to be a lot of the same old things, is everything feels, like we're looking for what the commercial opportunity is, and that's what all the candidates keep bringing to the table, is what's the commercial opportunity? How are we going to monetize this? Where's more money going to come from? Which, again, self-fulfilling cycle. But on the other side, it's so insular looking. So let's look at the corruption. Let's investigate FIFA. Let's look at where the problem is stemming from. But actually, so much of the focus needs to be pushed towards grassroots and what it means to the actual players and fans and millions of people around the world that are playing football every day who feel no connection or affiliation to FIFA.
I want to bring Sophia in at this point, because I know that you played for the under-14 to under-18 Jordanian team. Is that right? What are your thoughts on Prince Ali, obviously coming from Jordan, and his candidacy?
It's Sophia from Jordan. Not because I'm Jordanian, but I think he's young, and as we know before the president, it's good to bring him, and he's young, and he did a lot to the women's football. I'm gonna talk more about women's football because he successfully championed the lifting of FIFA's ban to hijab in women's football. They disqualified all the girls who wear hijab, and he fought for them to play again, and it really matters for the girls playing. And like we just went to a tournament and they were disqualified, and most of the teams, Iran, they just withdrew from the tournament, and he really did so much for women's football. So I really do think he needs to get a chance.
I want to cross over to Zurich now before we continue our conversation here in the room on World Have Your Say, obviously discussing the future of FIFA. We've got a big screen here with a live feed to Zurich where the FIFA delegates are voting for their next president. We can go over and speak to our sports news correspondent, Alex Capstick, who is there. Alex, it looks like a bizarre situation. Fernando was pointing out earlier on how they seem to be laughing and joking and having a right old time as they go and vote.
Well, it's a very long, laborious process. You might be wondering why they don't use the electronic system, which they did use earlier in the day to pass through the reforms, because it was much quicker and we'd be out of here by now. And the reason for that is that the USA, I think it was, complained about that voting system because it wasn't secret. You could trace back how people voted on that system, whereas you can't if you use a simple paper vote. So that's why we have to go through this very long process. We've already had, 3 hours now. We've got the rest of this round, and it may well go to a third round, so it could be a very, very long evening here.
What's the mood there? Everything that goes around FIFA at the moment seems to be terribly opulent. Are people kind of reining back? Is there a sense of perspective coming into the FIFA delegates' minds?
Yes, I think there is. I mean, I've been here for a few days now talking to a lot of delegates, members of the confederations, and they're all in agreement, really, that the organisation is on its knees. It needs a lift, and they think that coming here today and voting for a new president and voting through the reform package, which is very, very important, even more important to some of them, does give them that impetus. They admit that they're not out of the woods. There's a long, long way to go, but the consensus is that this will be a start. We'll have to see, of course, what happens. I mean, who gets elected, how that goes down. A lot could change, but there is I would say mild optimism that things will get better from today.
Thank you, Alex. That's Alex Capstick speaking to us live from Zurich at that vote. And it's worth saying that there's a World Football Special live from Zurich at 19:30 GMT today, hopefully with a result in that presidential election. But as Alex pointed out there, these things do tend to drag on somewhat.
Yeah, Jordan from the Football Fans podcast. The Marseille fan mentioned earlier on that he had a problem with the fact that there's too much business and politics involved in FIFA, and I would say that's necessary. FIFA, there needs to be an element of politics and business. It's a business. The problem is that it dwarfs the actual football element of what FIFA's supposed to represent. The West Brom fan was the first to mention the fans. The reason why none of the candidates really convinced me is because none of them are talking about how they plan to make the fans more involved in what happens with FIFA and with world football. And it was also mentioned about how somebody said that they feel this is the first step on the journey to solving corruption. I don't think it even is. I just think we're going to end up with a Blatter Mark II, which is really, really worrying for football fans.
Yeah, I completely appreciate your point. I mean, football is the biggest sport in the world, and it needs to be governed by somebody, some organization. But I think the structure of FIFA is wrong. I think there is, a vote for one leader, and as soon as you elect one leader to decide where the World Cup is going to be and these kind of things, I think there is straight away conflict of interest. People who know World Cup sponsors, people who will try to make money out of it directly. I think it should be better if it was a debate from people from different confederation and people who have come from the game, people who want good for football and not only put money in their own pocket, basically.
It's Oliver, the Norwich fan again, and I just wanted to point out that from a European point of view, it's very important to think about the fans, but for lots of the people around the world, that actually what FIFA's there for is to put money into building pitches in African countries and doing the charity work, and I think that's a very important thing they should be doing as well.
And we're going to be talking about the fans' perspective a little bit more on World Have Your Say after the news. We're using the hashtag BBC FIFA Future. I can see lots of your comments coming in on our Twitter feed. I'll read more of those to you after the latest BBC World News. Don't go anywhere.
This is the BBC World Service, where there will be a summary of the news along shortly, after we've heard from Tim Franks and Razia Iqbal.
NewsHour is the news programme that brings you the world in an hour.
We begin with the Indian Prime Minister.
We have a truly global news agenda with stories from every continent and corner of the planet.
I've heard from places like Bombari.
But we've also got correspondents on the ground with the local perspectives on those stories.
Well, it's all cordoned off now.
We try and give you the background, helping you to understand what's happening and why.
Hydrogen bombs are significantly more powerful.
But we also go deeper with analysis that really gets to the heart of an issue.
The central guiding principle.
We've interviews with some of the key players, right up to prime ministers and presidents.
Every president, every leader has strengths and weaknesses.
And we also dissect what they said and why.
What about President Obama himself? What sort of mood was he in?
That's all in a single hour.
And it's on every day.
NewsHour at bbcworldservice.com/newshour.
Hello, I'm Katie. This is a special edition of World Have Your Say Live with a group of football fans from around the world. As many eyes are on Zurich, awaiting the announcement of who will be the next president of FIFA, we're having our own conversation about the future of football. Who should run it? Can FIFA be trusted? Plus, we'll outline some of the changes we would make if we walked in their shoes.
Now the BBC News with Stuart McIntosh. Members of World Football's governing body FIFA are holding a second round of balloting to choose its new president. Among the four candidates, Gianni Infantino of Switzerland and Sheikh Salman of Bahrain won the most votes in the first round. The main opposition group in Syria has said that almost 100 rebel groups, including factions from the Free Syrian Army, have signed up to a temporary cessation of hostilities due to start at midnight local time. Warring parties were meant to make their intentions known by midday. Several Balkan countries have announced new limits on the number of migrants crossing their territory on the way to northern Europe. Slovenia says it'll allow fewer than 600 people to enter each day, and Croatia, Serbia and Macedonia say they'll do the same. A Palestinian journalist has ended a 94-day hunger strike in an Israeli jail. Mohammed al-Kik has been held in prison without trial since last November. Palestinian officials say that Mr. al-Kik will be released in May. A Christian pastor in China who refused to remove a rooftop cross from his church has been sentenced to 14 years in prison for corruption and inciting people to disturb social order. Bo Guohua was one of the very few government-approved pastors to resist planning officials who've removed more than 1,000 crosses from churches across Zhejiang province. State television in Iran says voting has been extended by 2 hours in nationwide elections because of what it describes as a rush of voters. The elections are the first since Tehran signed a deal with world powers over its nuclear program. Members of a drug-dealing armed gang that exploited vulnerable girls for sex in the northern English town of Rotherham have been given long jail sentences. The ringleaders, 3 brothers of Pakistani origin, got between 35 and 19 years for offences, including rape. BBC News.
Hello, welcome back to World Have Your Say. Chloe Tilley live with you from a special gathering of football fans here at the home of the BBC Broadcasting House. We've stepped out of our studio, we've got into the lift, we've headed 3 floors down to a big room here. It's called the Media Cafe, and we've brought together a group of football fans from around the world. Behind me we have a live TV feed from Zurich as delegates from FIFA vote for their next president. That is why we are here. They've got this extraordinary congress gathered in Zurich. Of course, the former president, Sepp Blatter, is one of 30 former or current FIFA executives to be arrested on corruption charges. He's been banned from all footballing activity for 6 years, along with the former UEFA boss Michel Platini, 2 of the most powerful men in world football. Well, some reforms were passed this morning. They're going to bring more women into the game. They're going to be transparent about salaries, and presidents will only be allowed to serve 3 terms. So in the first half of the programme, we talked about the scandals, we talked about the candidates. We're now going to focus on what should change at FIFA and whether the fans sitting in this room have any faith at all in the organisation, or indeed should it be disbanded? You're using the hashtag BBC FIFA Future, and if I turn to the screen behind me with the World Have Your Say Twitter feed on, I can see Rob Hadley has tweeted saying all these candidates sound very like the last lot. Isn't it time for something different? Chijoki says if the transparent reform is upheld and implemented, then surely a new dawn has come in FIFA. So do tweet us using the hashtag BBC FIFA Future. But first of all, I want to ask people in the room, if you were voted as the president of FIFA, what's the first thing that you would do?
Two words. In Latin, we say tabula rasa. That means like ground zero of all management, new people managing FIFA, and all gathering together to understand how to recover for some credit toward the people who doesn't trust FIFA.
Dean here again from AMI Football, and I would make every single financial transaction within the organisation published publicly.
Hi, Deborah from Transparency International. I would appoint an independent person to oversee everything that FIFA does so that people would win back trust and they would understand that there was someone who they could trust was looking at what was being done in their name.
Hi, it's David from Alive and Kicking. We make footballs in Africa. As president of FIFA, I would start to run the organisation like a not-for-profit should be run. I would use the 1.5 billion in reserves to develop football around the world, working with NGOs, charities, not-for-profits, who can use the money much better than I believe FIFA can.
I think fans in the UK, this is Nick from the West Bromwich Albion Supporters Club, are demanding at the moment 20 quid limit on the price of away tickets. I think that is a very simple demand which from the top FIFA could support in terms of the Football Supporters Federation here demanding of the clubs in Britain.
But if you look at fan power, I mean, Sherelle is sitting next to you in her Liverpool shirt, and of course there was real fan strength and power at Liverpool recently with the well, it was going to bring in 77 quid for a ticket, and all of the about 10,000 fans walked out on the 77th minute of the Sunderland game, demanding that was reduced, and the owners listened.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool, the owners did to the fans, that's fine, but I mean, as a governing body, FIFA, that is something that they can make a pledge in regards to grassroots football. That 1.5 billion that the gentleman was saying, not only going to NGOs and charities, but ensuring that across the broad grassroots football is represented and helping players come up through grassroots.
I think one of the biggest problems with FIFA is that they're not subject to the laws of any land. You can't take FIFA to court. That is absolutely ridiculous. They do not pay taxes anywhere. So what is there to control them? There's absolutely nothing. So if I was a FIFA president, probably that's what I would try and find in the statutes, to make FIFA subject to the laws of some country.
And Calvin, it's interesting that you say that. It's interesting that you say that because many people will say that actually FIFA should be disbanded. But you make the point, who could disband FIFA other than FIFA?
I do not subscribe to FIFA being disbanded. Football needs one central body that all the other associations should report to, or should be members to. However, they need to be subject to some law somewhere. It's got to happen.
Those points are exactly right, and there's 2 points arising out of that. The first one is the difficulty is that on a domestic sense, the English FA controlling prices, for example, they can do that, but they get marginalised within FIFA if they don't vote for the right person, and FIFA can do exactly what they want because, as you said, they've got no. If the UK government or any other government criticise FIFA, then they use Article 17 of their rules to say, well, they're interfering in football, and so we'll ban your national team from playing in a tournament. It's outrageous.
Do you know what? It was not until England failed to qualify to get the rights to the 2006 World Cup that some of these things came to light. FIFA, any FIFA tournament is hosted, FIFA pay no tax there. Part of the agreement that the country has to make is that they will accept that they will pay no tax. They will not take any FIFA official to court for any reason. How do you do that? That's just unacceptable and needs to be changed.
Well, I think Jordan's got it right in terms of unfortunately, it's just going to be another person. And so I think the first thing is that if FIFA continues in it as the organisation running football, it needs someone independent to come in from outside of that organisation at the top. And that's clearly not going to happen at present.
Jesus, football correspondent for Onda Cero. Yes, I'm agree with you. They will probably need to elect who is going to control them instead of who's going to preside them. The best thing people at FIFA could do, I think, is apologize, disband themselves, and start from scratch again, start from zero. That is not going to happen clearly. So Infantino has been around from about a decade.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. This is Deborah from Transparency International. FIFA does have laws applicable to it. I don't think they're quite the right ones. It's an association in Switzerland, and the Swiss government does regulate them. Now, the Swiss government can actually change some of the laws to make it harder. And one other thing that could change is that in the investigations that are going on by the FBI at the moment, FIFA is being called a victim. I know that sounds really, really silly, that FIFA is a victim in all this. But if it changes and they don't call it a victim anymore and they call it a perpetrator of the crimes, then the Swiss can dissolve it as an association, and what will be left is the brand, the World Cup, which has a value, and that will go on to someone else. So it could be reconstituted from the ground up, but I think that they don't want to do that in Switzerland at the moment.
Hi, it's Jordan from the Football Fans podcast. I think it's very easy also to give FIFA a good kick in, and for obvious reasons, there's clear corruption and wrongdoing happening there. But from an English point of view, we need to be careful that we don't try to come across whiter than white as well, because the English FA, they have their role to play in what's going on as well. So they need to be very, very careful of hypocrisy, because they've done their fair share of things which weren't great as well in terms of the overall process. In my view, they were just rubbish at it. That's the only difference.
Yes, I'm Yuri from the Russian service, BBC, and I have worked for many years in Russia, but that's not my point at the moment. Yes, it is actually very difficult, if not impossible, to reform FIFA from within due to one simple reason. Here, Deborah from Transparency would definitely disagree, but the problem of FIFA, just like the problem of the United Nations, for example, is that it consists of peoples and nations and cultures which are completely different, and which, by the way, have the completely different notion and perception of corruption. What that questionable transaction between Blatter and Platini 5 years ago was a definite sign of corruption for the West. But gifts to big bosses are absolutely normal for people from the third world. And that's a problem within the FIFA.
Yes, that will change. If you have something written down that says you cannot give these gifts, when they got the watches in Brazil, that was a really big step to showing that the ones who took the watches and didn't say anything, and the ones that said, we can't accept these watches, things can change on that. There can be a different way of doing things.
And then there was a question of what could be instead of FIFA. One of the solutions could well be creation of professional, enclosed, independent, commercial leagues all over the world, which would manage their own money. There won't be any questions about corruption because these are commercial and these are their money. And let FIFA manage and develop mass football. That's it.
I think you need the fans involved here, and certainly those leagues would be difficult to manage that way. Fans, we had a poll of 26,000 fans across the world on a football app, and 69% didn't have any faith in FIFA at all. But 50% said that they had a chance to restore their reputation. Okay, what the fans need to do is make their feelings really known, like they did at Liverpool. They got up and they walked out, and they were listened to. People have said all over the years that once the whistle blows, fans don't care about the way football is managed. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think they're really shocked and really unhappy, and they can march with their feet and get some change.
Dean here again. It's interesting listening to what Deborah has to say and the amount of time she said the word fans. We're all sat here as football fans, and FIFA is a football governing body, so we want to see the best football on the pitch possible. They've just provided probably the best World Cup we're going to see in a long while. So what I'm trying to get my head around is, what do we really want to see? We've just had the best tournament. We've just had, you know, Brazil lose 7-1, on their best on their own turf. So what is it really in these reforms that we're looking for? Because the football on the pitch is fine. It's the off-the-field issues. What changes are we desperately wanting to see?
I'm Katie from Hackney Laces. One change that I'd like to see, and I'd love to get a sense of the room on this because we all are from such different places. I would love to see the Women's World Cup in the exact same year, around the same time as the Men's World Cup.
So like the Paralympics, for example, because that was a massive thing in 2012 to have the Paralympics so close to the Olympics and get people really behind the games.
Precisely. This year it's happening with cricket as well. The women's cricket's being played to a full stadium before the men's is. And with the Women's World Cup being in the same year, and again, we're all from different countries, but my two countries are Canada and China. Our men's teams don't qualify. I am a football fan. What am I going to support? I'm going to support Canada women and China's women because as a fan, those are my two teams, and we don't have men's teams in the actual World Cup.
Hi, I'm Joel Cadogan from the Keep On Sideshow. One thing I'd like to see from FIFA is a firmer stance on issues like racism. I think the World Cup being awarded to Russia, for instance, no offence. I think
Yuri's not taking offence. He's shaking a head. It's fine.
I mean, me as a black football fan, I wouldn't be extremely comfortable with going to Russia with the issues that have happened there. I think there needs to be a harsher stance on racism.
But do you think that comes from the top, Joel? Because if you look at some of the comments that Sepp Blatter has made or been surprised that people would have been offended by when you look at racism, sexism, homophobia, that didn't seem to really cause any problems for Sepp Blatter. He seemed to scratch his head and say, well, what's the problem with those kinds of comments? And only when he was told, actually, you can't say these things, that he kind of backtracked a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. That has come from the top. But, he's outgoing at the moment. I think then whoever is elected needs to have put forward a harsher stance, definitely.
See, we've got to he said there, this is coming from Supersport, in terms of fans, we need to understand that the Premier League and possibly a lot of the leagues in Europe, their fans probably carry far more, they carry more weight in asking for things than in other countries. FIFA, theirs is to organize World Cup tournaments. I agree with my friend here about the Female World Cup should be held at the same time as the Male World Cup. However, what we want from FIFA at this point in time is that FIFA needs to be transparent, one, then they need to consider what the players are thinking more in terms of where they're going to host the World Cup, especially this Qatar matter. Now, the Qatar happened again because of people offering inducements to the people, executives that voted.
You're listening to World Have Your Say. If you're just switching on the radio, it's a special edition of the programme. We've moved out of our usual studio, moved 3 floors down in Broadcasting House in London to the Media Cafe to have some more room to speak to the 20 or so football fans who are here to talk to us about how they see the future of football. Because, of course, at the same time, I turn around to a screen behind me and the FIFA delegates in Zurich, well, it looks like they've probably finished voting now in the second round of those presidential elections. So they're deciding who the president of FIFA should be. We're deciding which direction the game should go in, and the hands all went up around the room when we were talking about the one change we would like to see.
I think it's Aaron from the Northern Ireland Supporters Club. Those are all really good points, and I think that the surprise of Sepp Blatter just shows how out of touch FIFA is with real issues and the fans, and that's why I need someone to come in who's independent. And I'm afraid, Deborah, I have to disagree with you. I think you're far too optimistic that change can happen. And, for example, you talk about how the Swiss authorities can do something. They only got involved because they were forced to. They didn't want to. The Americans forced their hand, And secondly, I think that one of the reasons why FIFA is set up in Switzerland is because they actually have little regulation of sports clubs.
It's true. I'm not that optimistic that FIFA can change. I'm just thinking that the independent person will be able to do that, and more arrests will actually force them to change more.
You talk about those arrests, Deborah, because I wanted to ask you, do you think the FBI is able to clean up FIFA? Because there have been some serious press conferences where they've talked about racketeering. We heard earlier comparisons with the mafia. I mean, if anyone can clean up FIFA, surely the FBI can?
It's not really their job to clean up FIFA, actually. They can take a broom to FIFA and sweep out all the corrupt and criminal people in the room there. But it's not really their job to clean up FIFA.
The fact is, the main reason why people don't trust FIFA for me is, besides of corruption, is continuity. Because since in 42 years we have had only two presidents, in João Avelange and Joseph Blatter. Now these four candidates, well, the likely two, the front runners, the Infantino and Salman, are in continuity in a sort of sense. I just saw a Twitter before someone was tweeting that I was supporting Infantino. I don't support Infantino.
Let me read the tweet if I can. Oh, no, it's gone. Someone's very kindly scrolling down the page for me to assist me. Here we go. Thank you very much to the person on the computer who's waving at it. Michael has tweeted saying, why does one guy, that's you, you're right, think that Infantino will walk it, and why is he so pleased to have Platini's right man as president?
Well, Infantino has a clean face because he's the man of the draw. A lot of fans, for example, I'm from Italy, there's huge amount of fans with the hashtag Infantiners that were supporting Infantino because he's the funny guy who makes the Champions League draw. But you don't vote someone because he's funny and he makes the Champions League draw. I want to see actually if he that is likely to be elected, if he can operate for the good of FIFA, even though he has not a solid background. We were talking about all the candidates asking questions to Blatter. That's not a good way to start.
I think one of the reasons, this is Oliver, the Norwich fan again, one of the reasons people are supporting Infantino is who he's up against. And we saw earlier the reform package that they're going to have human rights within all of their statutes. However, the person he's against, Sheikh Salman, is implicated in torture in his own country. Now that is...
Yeah, there have been allegations here in the UK. There are allegations made under parliamentary privilege suggesting that during the 2011 uprising in Bahrain, part of the Arab Spring, that he was involved in that. It's something he vehemently denies.
He vehemently denied that he was involved in picking out who was involved. But he did not deny that these things were happening in a country where he's part of the ruling family. And if we're going to have someone who is supposed to be putting up human rights, and yet in his own country they're being trampled, that causes a huge conflict of interest.
Nick, the West Brom fan, I am here obviously representing supporters of an English Premier League club, but I want to introduce a slightly different perspective on this, which is partly to do with the accessibility of women, for example, into football, but also the general accessibility and getting away just from the concentration on elite football, getting away from just asking how good was the World Cup. I'd like to ask another question. How many kids are actually playing football, boys and girls? In the country, because as a lifetime, I've just retired from teaching, and I know that a lot of the young people in Britain are playing far less football. They're generally living a more sedentary life and so on. They love football, but increasingly it's as a consumer, not as a participator. And I think that's a real social problem which could be part of a new approach to football overall.
But that's not FIFA's remit. There's an FA here that's supposed to do that. There are things here that should handle that, not FIFA. FIFA's own, it's far more to do with the world than it is with football here in England.
Eddie Guevara here from Philippine FC. I guess the question I really have is after all of these elections are over, and say if they do elect someone from the candidacy or decide to scrap it altogether, how many of us here are actually going to still trust FIFA? Because at the end of the day, before even coming here, I spoke to a couple of friends of mine, and I told them, I'm going to be on a show about FIFA, talking about issues, and I asked them, what sort of things come to your mind when FIFA gets brought up? One word: corruption, all the time. As a football fan and someone who's coached kids before, I'd love FIFA just to show how they can develop football in other countries and just continue doing what they're doing for that cause.
Well, you raise an interesting point. We've got about 5 minutes of the programme left. Let's have a show of hands. Who does think that at some point in the future they will have faith in FIFA? Wow, 3 hands out of about 20 of you. OK, why would you have faith, David?
I would have faith once FIFA starts to be transparent in all of its financial dealings, and I would also have faith in FIFA if it puts more of its finances into developing football around the world.
So it has got the opportunity to redeem itself almost?
Yes, I believe that's its most important tool in restoring its image, is using that 1.5 billion in reserves to develop football around the world. And I believe that it is its remit, because FIFA actually outlines that is one of its main objectives as a not-for-profit company.
Jordan from the Football Fans podcast. I don't have any faith. But, you mentioned transparency there. Going back to the candidates today, looking at who we've got, that's the reason why I have no faith, because they just seem to be replacing bad with bad. Sorry to piling on the lady here who said that she believes that disbanding it isn't the answer. If I come to your house and there's a fire because of bad electrics and there are casualties in that house, I'm not going to come back to your house until I know the electrics are better. It's like FIFA. Until I know there's candidates there that I can believe have good intentions and are going to be transparent, why should I believe there will ever be a different FIFA?
Hi, I'm Will Clunas. I'm from South London and I support Dulwich Hamlet, who play in the 7th division of the English League. And I made a conscious decision to start supporting Dulwich because I wanted to move away from the kind of the top tier football, which I think has become very corporatized and has become much more of a TV show than a fan event. I'd never enjoyed going to large-scale football matches in person until I started going to the smaller games, the more enjoyable games, and going to Dulwich. I was one of the hands down about having faith in FIFA, because I think FIFA and the kind of overall corporatization of our game just go hand in hand.
People forget that the IOC was just as bad, but the IOC were able to regenerate, and they're much better than they were at the time. FIFA will be. Yes, I think FIFA will have.
I don't have much faith in the future of FIFA. As Oliver said earlier, I think people are behind Platini's right-hand man because of the lack of choice, really. There's no very credible candidates, and even these guys who probably will be elected, in my opinion, is still very much linked with Platini, who's been charged. So how can we have some trust into this organization, really?
I'm Ennio from Italy, and I raise my hand for having faith in the future of FIFA, just because I think we are here, we love the game of football. And if we love the game of football, we are just a little bit optimistic. I think 3 months from now, we're probably going to be disappointed by FIFA either way. But now we can be optimistic. We should be optimistic, just a little bit.
This is Sherelle from the Keep On Side show. Once I think we get rid of, it's still linked with politics, it's got too much money, you've got nations, countries that are so poor that bribery and corruption will be there because they need investment, they want the money from FIFA. Once we continue to have that, then no, I don't have faith in FIFA.
There's people actually dying in Qatar while building the World Cup stadiums right now. So how can we be optimistic? Infantino has been here. Prince Ali is probably one of the responsibles of that. How can we be optimistic with
I'm sure Infantino would say he's not responsible for any deaths in Qatar.
Hi, it's Aaron again from the Northern Ireland Supporters Club. I think one question that I'd like to hear possibly on social media is if we're able to get someone independent in, who would people like to see? I know David Ginola has put himself forward, and everyone knows that he's in football in terms of poor man's Keith Gillespie, but at least he put himself forward, and it would be good if we could get other people from the footballing world.
OK, we've got about a minute left on the programme. If I go round, tell me the name of the candidate you want to win.
Prince Ali.
Prince Ali.
Infantino.
Infantino, but please don't expand the World Cup.
I would say Infantino too.
Infantino.
Hold my nose. Infantino.
Infantino.
Abstain.
Prince Ali.
Sepp Blatter, I'm joking.
Prince Ali. Prince Ali.
Prince Ali for myself. Not
Infantino.
Infantino, because he's pledged $500 million to developing football.
Well, stay tuned to the BBC World Service. Got a World Football Special live at 19:30 GMT, and you might get a result.
You're with the BBC World Service. In assignment, BBC reporters investigate the events shaping our world.
I'm Chris Rogers, and I've been undercover in Thailand, reporting on the Pakistani Christians who fled here seeking asylum, but found a nightmare. Hundreds are detained, and some even imprisoned alongside criminals. So what hope for the visitors Thailand doesn't want?
Not only what's happening, but why. Assignment at bbcworldservice.com/assignment. And at 20:30 GMT with Mike Williams on the Y Factor.
We'll visit the Large Hadron Collider at CERN to ask why humans are so obsessed with the biggest and the smallest, from the birth of the universe to the heart of an atom. Today, the infinite and the infinitesimal. I'm Mike Williams. Stay with us. The Fifth Floor is next.
Online, on mobile and on air. This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
Hello, I'm David Amano. You're listening to The Fifth Floor.